Tēnā tātou katoa. Can you hear me? Yep, kia ora. Tēnā koutou katoa, Dajia hao, malolele, talofa, kia ora ana, namaste, warm greetings, everyone. Tēnei te mihi ki te whare, tūmai nei. A te pōnei ka whakahōnoretia anō e tātou te māharatanga o Keith. Tonight we honour again the memory of Keith Locke. Kia ora. Tēnei te mihi ki te kaiawhina, kai kōrero, kai mahi, mō te mahi pai. Just acknowledging those behind this wonderful kaupapa together with our debaters here tonight. Nau mai, haere mai, piki mai ki te tau tohe tuarua I tēnei pō ki waipapa taumatarau. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the second annual Keith Locke Memorial Debate at Auckland Uni. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I'll do the opening karakia. Kia tau te rangimārie e ki tēnei whare. Let there be peace in this building. Kia piki te kaha, uplifting in strength. Kia piki te ora, uplifting in well-being. Kia piki te māramatanga, uplifting in wisdom. Gather it, it is done. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Kia ora. Over to you, Robert.
Ngā mihi, Leanne. Kia ora koutou. I just want to add my voice of welcome to that of Leanne on behalf of the organising committee for this debate. As most of you know, this is the second Keith Locke debate that we have organised since Keith left us far too early 2 years ago. We have chosen the debate format as Keith liked debates, but as long as they were undertaken in a respectful way. Last year's topic, that China is a threat to regional peace, and this year's topic, hate speech laws threaten free speech. I should go to elocution lessons to say that. Were chosen because we know Keith would have been having probably an internal debate himself about these issues. But by debating these issues in the open, we can acknowledge the points for and against that will help us make up our own minds until perhaps we change them again. You will see the program in front of you. You'll see those little codes, but don't worry about them yet. Janfrey will, after Mairi, will just explain how they go. Just the normal thing, the exits is a way that you, of course, came in, and just keep going down that hall and don't use the lift, but there's stairs, if you didn't come up the stairs at the end of that, where you can actually get out of the building. As we say in Tamaki Makaurau, we don't need to worry about earthquakes, but if the volcanoes go, we're quite close to 3 of them, and I haven't got instructions about what to do for that. I want to thank the moderator, Jane Kelsey, thank the law school for allowing us to have the debate here. Thank the debaters very much for being here this evening. And because I'm here, I can do a little advertisement, which I know Keith would be very happy for me to do. And it's just about another event at the end of this month. Some of you will know it already. On the 30th of July, Thursday, there is a showing of the film called The Earth's Greatest Enemy. The filmmaker, Abby Martyn, is from the United States, and she will actually be here and doing a Q&A with Simon Wilson after the film. So tickets for that are also selling fast, so if you want tickets for that, it's not Humanitix. You go straight to the Capitol Theatre, their own website, and book your tickets there. go to their web page. So, we hope we might see quite a few are there to continue to discuss and watch the things that Keith Locke was very passionate about. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora. Ko mairi taku ingoa, ko Keith Locke taku tungane. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou, and manawatia a matariki. Thank you all for coming to this debate tonight to discuss this really important topic in memory of Keith Locke. I'd like to just acknowledge one or two people who are here. First of all, Keith's widow, Michelle, is here, and she, very special evening for her. Also, as far as the Locke family is concerned, there's a cousin, John Locke, who's here tonight. Welcome to John. And I'm sure there are other members of the Locke family watching online. Unfortunately, they're a bit here tonight. And I'd also like to make a little thanks to the team that worked on this debate, because we had a very excellent team. Lots of hard work went into organising tonight, and I really want to appreciate Lynn, who's up the back, Lynn Colley, and her partner, Craft Media, for all their really, really hard work on the technical side, which is a total mystery to me. I want to thank Robert, who just spoke to you, Jan Free, Farrell Cleary, Michelle, and the Wellington-based part of our team, which was Jessie Moss and Tawhai Moss Brown, who are Locks, actually. My nephew and niece. Okay. And also want to say thank you to our support, Andy, to the Kaiawhina, to Bianca, to Tony, and others in that team whose names I haven't quite memorised yet. And of course, a big thank you to our debaters and to the moderator. It's a big deal, really, to put yourself on the spot to debate a controversial topic, and I really do appreciate, and people were really willing to do it too, so it's a real tribute to them. Now, just a few words about Keith. I was in the mall yesterday, and an older Tamil gentleman stopped me. I didn't recognise him at all, but he said to me, "You're Keith Locke's sister." And I said, "That's right, of course. He did so much for our community." And it was actually sort of quite touching, really, a sort of frail older man, going out of his way to remember Keith. And I was very touched, because I thought he's just one of, I don't know how many people who haven't forgotten Keith and haven't forgotten the role he played and the way he used his voice, both inside and outside Parliament, to stand up for those who needed standing up for, both locally and internationally. Fairness and justice locally and internationally. That was Keith. The sad part, really, of the story is that Keith couldn't himself record as much as he wanted to of his life experiences, because health got in the way, and also he never could stop following what was happening right at the moment and wanting to be part of that. But I think this debate will help to keep alive his commitment to open and frank discussions as the way to test our ideas and views. And I do sort of encourage you to keep looking at his website, because he did record quite a lot of his blogs and his writings on that website. And for some of you I know said to me tonight, "Oh, I didn't realise this was the second debate." Well, the first debate is also up there online, and it's not out of date, in terms of the topic, so you're welcome to look at that. Okay, so without prejudicing the debate that follows, I'll just say Keith supported freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. And we both grew up, of course, in a time when the left, and we were part of a very left family, was subject to disapprobation and to sanctions of various sorts, trouble getting jobs and all kinds. So I'll just say that. And with that, I'll pass over to I'm going to pass over to Jan Free, because she's going to explain the voting. Is that right? She's going to do it she's going to splice. We're going to
splice. Is this one working? Kia ora. Ki ngā mana whenua o tāmaki mā kaurau, ngā te whātua o rāke tēnā koutou, e ngā iwi o ngā hae whā tēnā koutou. Ko Jane Kelsey ahau, I have the privilege of being the moderator tonight. Let me mihi to Keith whānau, Michelle, Mairi, those others out there. And it's always a special time for us. We all have our own memories of Keith. So let me add my welcome to the second Keith Locke Memorial lecture. It's debate. I'm sorry, I'm back in the law school. There's something about being in the law school, it does it to you. And can I at that time also acknowledge my colleague Anna Hood, who has helped organise us being here. So in addressing the topic tonight, as Robert said, I hope all of our speakers and our audience will be inspired by all of the best things that Keith brought to debates. Provocation, respect. There was a suggestion before about it being respectful swearing. Good humour. But also principles, integrity, commitment, justice. And of course, when we were looking at Keith, it was about always being right, but being right from the left. So in a sense, having a right and a left makes the debate as it should be, without preconceived conclusions. You do get a chance now to vote in favour or against the motion. Well, it's not a motion really, is it? It's a question.
Called a moot.
A moot. And Jan Free-Wakeham is going to explain to you how to do that. There is a QR code there. Some of us who are technologically challenged cannot explain it to you. So Jan Free is going to do that, and then you will get a chance again after the debate to revisit your vote and maintain your position or shift your ground, and there will be a winner at the end of the debate. So before I introduce the speakers, over to Jan Free.
Can I just say too, one thing I forgot was to welcome, there's a couple of people here tonight who were part of last year's debate. It's really nice that they've come. It's Trevor Johnson and Wayne Mabb.
How many people can do a quick QR code anyway? Just raise your hands if you're quite happy about that. Okay. Well, I don't know if you need the wisdom of an 80-year-old.
We always need the wisdom of an 80.
But basically, as it says, there will be a vote before the debate in favour. If you favour that suggestion that hate speech does threaten free speech, and there'll be one after the debate and all of the wisdom that's we're offered. All you need to do is scan that with your phone, and it'll take you to through the browser to the thing which says Keith Locke. And you then have to put in, there's a little icon on the top right. Apparently there are different ways that different phones do it differently, so this could be misinformation, I'm afraid to say. But on the right hand side there is a little icon, and it can show you whether the up or down. So fiddle around with that. We'll give you a few minutes. Is that all right?
Thank you, Jeffrey. Okay, so we will give you a couple of minutes to navigate your way through, having forgotten how to do this from COVID time.
Nobody leaves without getting vaccinated.
I have been vaccinated sometimes. Well, it should be a different logo. Fix that.
Can I pee quickly? Can I pee quickly? I'll give you 3 minutes.
Yes, yes. All right. Not for me, it's actually aged. One more minute. Okay. All done? Yeah? So you'll get another shot at the end and we will announce the results at the end. So now to the event itself. This has a traditional debate format, so we're going to alternate between the affirmative and the negative, and we will have the leaders leading off and then the rest of the teams alternating, and then the leaders will have a chance to sum up at the end. I do know that Simon's already written his end summary. They will be kept strictly to time. It is a cowbell. And so there'll be a 2-minute warning and a 30-second warning. And then, Bomber, when you go over time, it will ring very loud. So, the affirmative team, first off, and I said that because he's the first off speaker, but also because he's Bomber. The affirmative team led by Martyn Bradbury, political commentator, host of a weekly podcast, The Bradbury Group, editor of the daily blog, Aotearoa's only? largest left-wing political blog, Martyn says he's been commentating on New Zealand politics for 31 years, so I estimate that was around the 96 first MMP election. Yeah? So, a veteran who has managed to maintain an independent platform outside the mainstream media to debate the issues of the day and to bring together, as in this debate, a range of perspectives who probably never thought that they would be together on a left-wing blog arguing those points. Verity Johnson. Next on, well, actually, you're number 3 speaker on the team, but we're not third. Not third. One of those of you who especially watch media online, one of the most popular of the opinion columnists who brings the voice of younger women into the, and you are still, it's all very relative these days, yeah, onto the page. With the #1 column for Stuff and regular contributions to Radio New Zealand, and a back catalogue that includes co-hosting Paul Henry's breakfast show and News Hub. And Verity is also a comic writer and performer, and so we are promised a lively and provocative take on the question, with respectful swearing. And the third speaker in the Affirmative team, Thomas Beagle, chairs the New Zealand Council for Civil Liberties and describes himself as a proud supporter of liberal democracy who loves Wellington. Now, I recall, we were working out where we'd met, and I recall Thomas speaking actually at a debate that Martyn chaired in the town hall on the TPPA. And a really important voice for those who work as tech gurus, and works out how to balance the challenges that civil liberties are being eroded by tech developments, but also seeing the potential that there is to increase democratic participation and government accountability. On the negative side, led by veteran journalist and book author Simon Wilson, recently ex-The Herald, now a regular columnist in New Zealand Listener and commentator on Radio New Zealand. Simon's illustrious career includes editor of Metro, of Cuisine, of Consumer magazines, with numerous awards as feature writer of the year twice, Magazine of the Year for Metro and Cuisine. You were around when Bruce was around, were you? No. No. God, you're young.
Your age.
But it's Simon's work on politics, climate change, the arts, but especially urban issues that's made him a favourite of successive Auckland mayors. So alongside...
It's hilarious.
He did want to know what I was going to say about him. Alongside Simon, Anjum Rahman has been an active voice for free speech on free speech issues. First, I think, making a submission back in about 2004, was it, on the Films, Videos, Publications, Classifications Act, and then, of course, followed by the Hate Speech Inquiry. And in 2024, I think we both were participants in the debate on free speech at Te Here Ngawaka, Victoria University. And Anjum works with Tā Hono Trust that's committed to empowering communities across Aotearoa, me Te Waiponamu, and is involved in the Christchurch Call Advisory Network that addresses terrorist and violent extremist content online. And balancing out this side, Yasmine Serhan, highly respected trade union organiser. Which trade union was it?
The Tertiary Education Union.
Oh, my union.
Yeah.
I'm retired. Early childhood educator and social justice advocate who's organised around Te Tiriti o Waitangi and around the Palestinian liberation across Aotearoa. And Yasmine is running for the Green Party as a list candidate in the newly formed Glendine electorate in West Auckland at number 18, so votes count. And if elected, will become our first Palestinian MP, and hopefully we'll be joined by many others with a spine. So let me now hand over to Martyn to launch us into tonight's debate. Please welcome him. Clock's on. Have we got props?
Comrades, I bring bread and roses. Kia ora to the esteemed members of the Keith Locke Memorial Debate Group, and thank you for putting on this evening's event. Our civil society is deeply grateful to you. Greetings to the left-wing legend and recreational Jedi that is Professor Jane Kelsey as moderator. She is goddamn legend. Solidarity to those here tonight in person who keep Keith's legacy alight with your participation, and to the many, many, many millions who are watching this debate live right now online. We thank you for your attention to these urgent matters to our nation, as misinformation, disinformation and social media hate algorithms warp the political debate, so much so that they now corrode the very foundational values of our democracy. I salute my worthy opposition, for they are about to die, not literally, but metaphorically. Tonight I have the privilege of being the leader of the Affirmative team as we debate the moot hate speech laws threaten free speech. This evening my teammate, famous civil rights lawyer and custodian for civil liberties, Mr. Thomas Beagle, will convincingly argue that hate speech laws are a threat to freedom of expression and are legally difficult to define. After Thomas, the third teammate of our group, well-known newspaper columnist and defender of free speech, Verity Johnston, who will expand on why anyone would trust the state with something as important as free speech. Because would anyone in this room seriously allow Chris Luxon, David Seymour or Winston Peters to define what free speech should be? They seem to have a problem defining what a woman is, or what a limousine is, or what a healthy school lunch is, or what a war crime is. You know what? Just for us, let's just send the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister a dictionary before we get them to define hate speech laws. Comrades, my name is Martyn Bomber Bradbury, which is a terrible nickname for airport security. I am the editor of the Daily Blog, New Zealand's largest left-wing blog, and host of the weekly political podcast, The Bradbury Group, and I have some thoughts, comrades, on free speech. My job tonight as Capitan of this evening's Affirmative team is not just to convince you that hate speech laws threaten free speech. Oh no, that would be too easy a task. No offence, Simon. Brothers and sisters, tonight I won't just strive to convince you that hate speech laws threaten free speech. Tonight I will challenge and argue and debate that the New Zealand left itself should surge forward and retake the mantle of free speech champions from the right, who have been allowed to weaponise free speech and rob it of its legitimacy. Tonight I cry out to the New Zealand left. Don't merely accept free speech. Consensually embrace it and champion it consensually. Our desire as a movement to protect minorities from without power from feral and oppressive insults and harassment has been twisted by the right into a narrative of woke Big Brother censoring opinions. We must take this moment as a movement to reflect on why free speech is so important. Our nation, Aotearoa New Zealand, whakapapas to a unique te ao Māori worldview and an 800-year Western democratic tradition that takes us back to the Magna Carta, the values of which have been sharpened and tested over centuries of friction between king and citizen, Tory and Whig, Catholic and Protestant. These Western democratic values hold a gravity to their logic that demands a citizen engage and protects free speech, no taxation without representation, the recognition of the rights of the individual, freedom of religion, separation of powers, rule of law, and an independent judiciary. Not only are these truths self-evident, they demand from us more than mere lip service if we are to defend the institutes now under attack. I want to note clearly from the start that we are not free speech absolutists. You can't yell fire in a theatre and then be blameless for the crush afterwards. You can't defame someone, and you cannot incite violence nor harass or intimidate others. Take Bishop Brian Tamaki. No, please, take him. The Bish claims he was using free speech to criticise churches being attacked by extremist Hindu nationalists in India. Okay, he has the free speech and the right to be critical of that. But then he called on his nutty cultist followers to purge Muslims, Sikhs and Hindus from New Zealand while calling on his nutty cultist followers to burn down mosques and temples. Disgraceful and disgusting. Free speech does not allow you to incite violence on others, and that's exactly what he did. The police shouldn't be turning up at his house just to seize his guns. They should be arresting him for a multitude of existing laws. There are three laws that the bishop has broken here. Incitement to commit an offence, threatening or intimidating behaviour, and inciting racial disharmony. We don't need new hate speech laws. We just need enforcement of the existing laws. Comrades, hate speech laws were never used against those that we on the left feel should be punished. We imagine when we push for hate speech laws that it is the racists, the homophobes, the bigots who will get arrested, but the state has a long, long history as laid out in Keith's own indomitable sister, Mari Leadbeater's book, The Enemy Within, which charts how the state has abused its surveillance powers using trumped-up charges of hate speech. Hone Harawira was under state surveillance. Nikki Haga was under state surveillance. I was under state surveillance. Unions were, environmentalists were. Keith Locke himself was under state surveillance since he was 11 years old. Comrades, when an 11-year-old Keith Locke is defined as a threat to the state, how are any of us safe? The majority of the political prisoners in the UK right now are environmentalists and Palestine Action protesters. If I merely said Palestine Action in the UK right now, I'd be arrested. Hate speech laws are never used against the people we believe they should be used against. They are always overwhelmingly used by the state to suppress and shut down any debate they feel threatened by. The Free Speech Union is an astroturf group that is part of the taxpayers' union cabal of manipulation. They have weaponised free speech using a narrative that the left want to censor, and tonight I put to you that the left should be in no business of censoring anyone, but should instead champion free speech so that we can speak truth to power. 9 times out of 10, the red line of any of these so-called right-wing free speech champions is any criticism of the appalling war crimes in Israel. Crimes so bad, they technically breach genocide levels. The moment you start criticising Israel, suddenly it's anti-Semitic hate speech. The left needs to take back the power of our free speech. Hate speech laws are not used against those spouting filth towards our migrant brothers and sisters. They are used to strangle off legitimate criticism and put guardrails up about what is and what is not permissible in the public sphere of debate. Go after those spouting filth with defamation action or existing anti-harassment laws or when the speech incites violence. Arrest them then. But don't create the perception that we are censoring free speech when free speech is instrumental to our own capacity as a movement to hold the powerful to account. Champion free speech by broadening those who can access it. Champion free speech by engaging with the debate. Champion free speech by challenging power. There is a reason why free speech is a foundational value of our Western democratic tradition. Tampering with it generates immediate backlash because it is such a foundational value. We become weaker as a movement when we cancel the speech of those we detest, and we lose the ability to persuade others of the strength of our ideas. Brothers and sisters, tonight isn't just about hate speech laws threatening free speech. Tonight is about us as a movement recognising the 800-year tradition our values whakapapa back to. Free speech isn't a nice to have from an archaic time. It is the essential oxygen to a democracy that risks igniting opposition by creating hate speech laws rather than promoting free speech solidarity to speak truth to power. Comrades, I call upon you the opening of this debate in earnest. Thank you.
Martyn, come back. You've got 3 seconds.
That was impressive, wasn't it?
Kia ora, everybody. I'm going to use my free speech firstly to mangle the bit of third form Latin that I remember and was reminded of by my friend Bomber here in his introduction, Te Moderator te salutant. Those who are about to die salute you. It's what the legionnaires said when they went into battle. The thing about free speech is that everyone thinks of it as like this evening, a rational discussion among decent, civilised people and Martyn Bradbury. Just like in the days of Plato. But that's not it. Even Plato wasn't all that Platonic. The laws the Athenian assembly had around freedom of speech weren't hate laws as such, they were just the natural order of things. Slaves couldn't speak there, nor could women, nor could conscientious objectors, which will be of relevance to 2 or 3 people in the room. Free speech is an extremely valuable construct, but that's what it is, a construct, like democracy itself, something made by a group of humans to serve their interests. As for Plato himself, he didn't like democracy because the construct could be too easily manipulated. The assembly voted for his hallowed mentor Socrates to be put to death. The tyranny of the righteous is something our team will return to. The construct of free speech is not absolute. It's great to learn that Bomber knows that he's not allowed to call fire in a crowded cinema, unless there is a fire. So the question is, where and how do we draw the line? My colleagues this evening will be exploring that in detail. They have pedigree in this. Anjum Rahman, who I feel very humbled to be sharing a platform with, has possibly had to endure more hate speech than anyone in this room. Yasmine Serhan cops a fair bit too, and do you know if the Greens get to 15%, she will become an MP. Anjum is going to talk, among other things, about the Christchurch mosque murders, because this debate makes no sense at all unless someone does that. She'll tell us how the terrorist was radicalised and why he did what he did. Yasmine will also talk about what hate speech is and the harm it does, and she also has some personal experiences to share. Both Anjum and Yasmine will talk about free speech and the treatment of Māori, because that is also central to this debate, all of which leads to the question of why we need hate speech law. They'll explain how human rights laws work and what good law about the right to speak looks like. As for me, I'm going to talk about the Enlightenment and the free speech movement, which is the reason we are even having this debate, what it represents and the menace it has become. I loved that Bomber evoked the Free Speech Union, but I think we should be clear. They'd be on your side. The free speech debate comes from America, land of the free and the brave and more guns than there are people to shoot them. America has 4% of the world's population and 46% of its privately owned guns. In 2023, a famous American said, "I think it's worth it to have some gun deaths every single year so that we can have a Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. This is a prudent deal. It is rational." Charlie Kirk. 2 years later, he was murdered. It's pertinent to this debate because that Kirk's precious Second Amendment protects the right to bear arms in a country where he complained endlessly about cancel culture. You know what cancel culture looks like: an angry young man with a semi-automatic weapon. Gun culture is the threat to freedom Americans should be worried about. Charlie Kirk's death was framed as a free speech issue. Why? The assassination of the Kennedys, of Malcolm X, of Martin Luther King weren't seen like that. They were attacks on the substance of what the murdered leaders stood for: civil rights, black civil rights especially. Free speech was one part of it only. Making free speech the supposedly fundamental issue today corrodes the history of the civil rights movement because it denies that structural inequality and the subjugation of people of colour should be integral to the debate about human rights. That is, it whitewashes racism. I wrote about the murder of Charlie Kirk in the Herald last year. I said it was nonsense to suggest, as the Free Speech Union does, that free speech is a safety valve. Often the exact opposite is true. When that happens, free speech stirs hatred, as every tyrant in history, including the tin pot ones, has demonstrated. Donald Trump did it ahead of the January 6th insurrection, and Brian Tamaki, as we've heard, did it last weekend, calling for ethnic communities to be expelled and their places of worship to be burned down. He hasn't been arrested. That says something about the quality of our existing laws in relation to speech. Free speech is precious, not because of the fatuous reasoning that it's a safety valve, but because the clash of ideas is an invaluable dynamic of humanity and progress. But let's also be clear about this. If we wish to claim the right of free speech for ourselves, we must allow that it should not be weaponised, that it should not become the means to erode the freedoms of others. That requires society to make space for those who are intimidated, harassed, and attacked by people insisting on their right to say whatever the hell they like. This is a fundamental challenge to what Plato's mates thought of as the natural order. Now that everyone has the right to be heard, we have a new natural order. It requires the free speech construct to evolve, to recognise that important freedoms are lost if free speech is used to bully people into silence and cause them to live in fear of the hatred around them. Charlie Kirk didn't agree with free speech for everyone. He campaigned for academics whose views he didn't like to lose their jobs. At the Herald, after I published on him, there were vexatious and extremely time-consuming attempts made by some readers to restrict my freedom of speech. This is a tactic often used by followers of the Free Speech Union and of their compatriots gathered around Hobson's Pledge and the Taxpayers' Union. There's another so-called union that is not a union at all. That's people using their free speech to tell porkies about who they are. All of them, of course, are part of the hard right network that includes the Atlas Foundation, the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, the American Enterprise Institute, and an outfit called the Claremont Institute, whose alumni, known as Claremonsters, can be found throughout the Trump administration. I did not make that up. These are the people insisting free speech is under terrible threat, even while they steer American democracy off a cliff. It's not widely known that newsrooms struggle to deal with vexatious complaints and legal threats, but some stories just never happen. I once wrote a column about New Zealand billionaires' contribution to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which is a floating island of plastic and other waste in the Pacific, 3 times the size of France. I couldn't get it into print, not because I was wrong, but because the super wealthy people in question were judged to be too litigious. You want to talk about threats to free speech? That's a real one. Our restrictive defamation laws which inhibit media. The Free Speech Union acknowledges this, but seems much more interested in distracting us with the horrors of so-called cancel culture. Why has the important value of free speech been hijacked? Is it because the great rights movement of the 20th century, anti-fascism, civil rights, feminism, the queer campaigns, anti-colonialism, all waged their struggles against white, male supremacy, and for many of them, the enemy was also corporate greed. Those forces are not the enemy identified by the Free Speech Union and its fellow travellers. Some of them, especially in Hobson's pledge, are white supremacists themselves. They're part of the global freedom movement celebrated by Donald Trump with as bloated an example of supremacist instinct as you could imagine. Freedom 250, cage fighting on the White House lawn. Which brings us to the Enlightenment. The Free Speech Union hates it when anyone attacks the Enlightenment, that great flowering of ideals, commerce and culture, all true, but it was built on slavery, imperial conquest, genocide, the near obliteration of indigenous cultures, and a concept called free trade that destroyed entire economies. And as the Industrial Revolution grew from the Enlightenment and led to the runaway capitalism of today, we now understand these forces threaten the ruin of the whole planetary ecosystem. This is the dark underbelly of the Enlightenment, in which the tech bros and fossil fuel oligarchs become bloated with unimaginable wealth, safe in the belief they'll be immune to the damage they are doing. They are the threat to democracy and human rights we should be talking about, especially because we have never enjoyed more freedom of speech. Social media empowers us all, even as it eats away at us. That's a wee irony for you lot. Why are we supposed to worry about free speech? Because it's a distraction. Martin Luther King and Tafiti at Parihaka and Rachel Carson and everyone who waged a real struggle against a real enemy, if they knew we had become so distracted, if they knew we had let the hard right corrupt the cause of genuine freedom to shore up the interests of the rich and powerful, they would be horrified. Thank you.
Wow. Good evening, and it's a privilege to be at the second Keith Locke Memorial debate. At the New Zealand Council for Civil Liberties, we always had a lot of respect for Keith. He was a long-term member and even spoke at our AGM in 2009. More importantly, you could always count on him to speak up for what was right for issues both here and overseas. And speech is what we're here to talk about tonight. The ability to stand up, say that something in our society is wrong, or that something has to change, without the fear of being fined or jailed for it. Martyn has already spoken strongly in favour of free speech, and I thank him for that, because freedom of expression, which I'm going to use pretty well interchangeably here, is one of the key freedoms for our democracy and our personal freedom. Democracy may be going out of fashion at the moment, but I'm still a believer. We all know it's not perfect and can be a bit messy, but it's the messiness that's so important. It's everyone getting to have a say, trying to persuade or manipulate others to their point of view, some ideas getting traction and some disappearing, and finally we end up with something that's often pretty good, or at least not too bad. But even more importantly, these debates and discussions keep happening, and we keep making new decisions and affect change in our society without violence. But freedom of speech isn't all happy smiles and considered debate. One of the reasons that freedom of speech is so important is that speech can be powerful. The right words at the right time can inspire people, can change lives. But of course that power can be abused. The wrong words can incite violence or used to threaten and silence others. I accept that hate speech can be harmful to individuals, groups, and to our society. Humanity's history has too many examples of countries where concerted propaganda and hate speech has led to massacres or genocide, and it saddens me that New Zealand is also on that list. Some speech is the price we pay for freedom of expression rather than a benefit from it. But wait, hang on a minute. Am I arguing for the wrong side here? Haven't I just given the argument for limiting hate speech? Well, the problem here is that hate speech laws are tricky. Firstly, law tends to be slow, and speech, especially on the internet, is fast. By the time the legal machinery has got round to working, the harm is done, the debate has moved on, and there's dubious value in issuing a fine for something that happened 6 months or a year ago. Of course, laws don't have to be slow. We could set up quick-fire, rapid reaction speech tribunals, which could issue binding takedown notices on application, which means that we'll be setting ourselves up for the same massive abuse of the process we see of the no-notice DMCA copyright notices in the United States. If you give people the means to silence others without due process, it is inevitable that this will be weaponised. Both the well-meaning and the well-funded will seek out their ideological enemies, not to out-argue them, but to remove their voices from the public sphere. And I note that the people who are best at using the machinery of government to get their way, they're the privileged, of course, whether it's through social status, wealth, or of course just being part of the government. And whether the law is fast or slow, the effect is limited to New Zealand. We participate in a global internet that still supports anonymity, and therefore hate speech can be directed at people and in Aotearoa from overseas sources, or from, of course, local people who are pretending to be overseas sources. And there's really very little we can do about that. At least, nothing we can do and still have anything vaguely resembling a free internet and freedom of expression. Then there's what I call the religion problem. One of the main sources of hate speech and related incitement to violence is religious conflict. What could be the point of a hate speech law that didn't stop hate speech against Muslims, Jews, or Christians? But religion is complex. It's often a mishmash of culture, country, race, and belief. Some religions are clearly straight-out scams trying to rip off the gullible. Others are sincere, and they sincerely believe in terrible things. It seems clear to me that being able to criticise and question religion is important. But if those religions are protected by hate speech laws, what does that mean? You might say we can draw a difference between calling for the end of a religion and calling for the end of its followers. And that the first is okay, while the second is problematic. But humans are good at hiding meaning in metaphor and illusion, and I don't believe it's that simple. But even with all these negatives, I still think it's theoretically possible to come up with a hate speech law that probably wouldn't be too bad. One that can sometimes limit the very worst speech, or at least keep it in the shadows without unduly limiting freedom of speech. And here I am arguing for the opposition again. But the thing is that would you trust the current government to do that? Or the last one?
No.
Or the next one? Back in 2021, we looked at the proposals being circulated by the government to update our hate speech laws. They said a lot of the right things. Protecting freedom of expression, only the most extreme speech will be banned, etc., etc. On the face of it, it all looked pretty good, until you went a bit deeper and realised that their idea of harm was very wide. And there was too much risk of suppressing speech merely because it was unpleasant or someone didn't like it. Can we trust any government to implement and use these powers without being self-serving or being manipulated by others? We can look at United Kingdom, where they're arresting protesters who support Palestine action. I note that our own government is already consulting on expanding our own Terrorism Suppression Act, so they can, and I quote, capture public expressions of support for a terrorist act or designated entities. Or we can look at the self-interested people in our country who seem to believe that defending the environment is hate speech against farmers or miners, a view that at least some of our political parties might support. If you pass a law that makes it possible to suppress the speech of others, even for the best of reasons, it will be used by the powerful to silence people to protect their interests. The very purpose of hate speech laws is to limit freedom of expression, to punish people for saying the wrong thing. That's what they do. Now, it's possible we can justify some limits on freedom of expression in a democratic society. I think we all agree that incitement to violence goes too far. Maybe it's possible to go further and still preserve the core of freedom of the speech, but I'm not optimistic about it. My argument is that hate speech laws are difficult to get right, that if they're powerful enough to be effective, they will inevitably be abused, and that abuse will be used to limit the freedom of speech of others. There is no doubt in my mind that hate speech laws are a threat to freedom of expression. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. E ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā iwi, e ngā hoiwha. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Anjum Rahman tuku ingoa. So, we get to have free speech in every language, whether you can understand it or not. So for all of those who whine about a kia ora or get all worked up about an Aotearoa, remember this. If you want the free speech rights to be racist about te reo Māori, just remember there is free speech rights to speak it in your face, anywhere, anytime, by anyone. And like Thomas, you might think, oh, I'm making a argument supporting their side. Well, I guess I have to, because the calibre of their arguments are pretty weak. Come on, Thomas, you've got to make an effort here. I do want to acknowledge mana whenua, the organisers, love you all, my fellow panellists, and this misguided group over here. And Jane, I'm from the Waikato. You call that a bell? In particular, I do want to acknowledge Keith Locke, an amazing and powerful human being with a pure soul, courage, strength, and solid values. I wanted to start with the impact of hate speech. The biggest example that we have in our recent history is the Christchurch mosque attacks. 51 dead, 49 injured. The grief, the horror, the impact on victims, their families, first responders, later responders, community leaders, the Muslim community as a whole, all of New Zealand. The trauma, the economic cost, the social costs, the costs that have never and will never be measured. What was taken can never be given back, can never be restored, and as a nation we've stopped even trying. Now you think about tangata whenua, who have had 2 centuries of this. Death, theft of land and resources, destruction of culture and language. Think about the accumulated grief passed down over generations, along with the fresh wounds that are unleashed on each new generation. Think of the countries that are currently facing daily bombing, each day losing tens, hundreds of people. Losing schools, hospitals, food, fresh water, their children, while others sit by and watch, cheering the death on and demanding more of it. Each hateful, violent act has been preceded by violent speech that creates the conditions for physical and emotional harm. In the lead up to the Christchurch attacks, there were many smaller incidents that were happening. There are events happening to people and communities every day, certainly in the Muslim community, and I know many others. Mostly they weren't even reported. How did the Christchurch terrorists get radicalised? I'd like to acknowledge work done by the Islamic Women's Council, the Federation of Islamic Associations, and more lately, the report published by Dr. Chris Wilson and Michelle Ziewulski. There is evidence of where and how he was radicalised. There's also information in the Royal Commission of Inquiry report. He was known to be racist from a very young age. He was active in multiplayer role-playing games from a very young age. He was on 4chan, Telegram, YouTube, Facebook. He donated to Stefan Molyneux and other white supremacists. He himself credited YouTube for his radicalisation, but he is not a reliable witness. And the Wilson and Ziewulski report confirms that. His manifesto was called The Great Replacement, a conspiracy theory promulgated by a white supremacist. All through 2016 to 2018, as part of the Islamic Women's Council, I was part of the group reporting to ministers, to heads of state agencies, the impacts of racist and bigoted speech on education, employment, access to health, personal safety, and so much more. There is so much research to show that threats happen and violence happens after speech. In the last few years, there has been an additional target, the gender diverse communities of Aotearoa. The targeting is specific and spreading deliberate disinformation. How does it work? It starts with dehumanising language like cockroach, disease, vermin. That starts by posing the vulnerable community as a threat to other vulnerable populations, traditionally women and children. And also a threat to the economy, cultural values and norms. No community is perfect, but the targeted community has their wrongs magnified, explored in detail, tied to their identity. While the majority community, when they do wrong, it is not magnified in the same way. Tangata whenua are familiar with this pattern, familiar with this demonstration. From 1877, when Chief Justice Sir James Prendergast ruled that Te Tiriti was worthless and because it was signed by a civilised nation and a group of savages, and that ruling has not yet been overturned. I want to move on to, because I'm looking at the time, I do want to acknowledge the risk of hate speech laws when they're done badly, absolutely. They do get used more against minority populations than majority populations. We have the "what about the children" as an excuse to censor speech. We have political interference, suppression of political speech, suppression of speech that criticises leaders. And I'm talking about United States, United Kingdom and Australia. I agree that you have the right to offend. I mean, whoa, it's just so white over there. I should have brought shades. I agree with the right to satirise. Although I would like to see you lot make fun of me and Yasmine and not look like assholes. The right to disagree with religious or other ideologies. Absolutely, you can tell me that I'm wearing a hijab because I'm brainwashed, backwards, oppressed. I will laugh at your ignorance, but guess what? I don't need your approval. But those risks can be mitigated. Statutory independence, like the police, the Classifications Office and other bodies. Making sure all rulings are public, just like the BSA and the Classifications Office, like this stuff is working already. And the right of appeal. This isn't a nice to have. This isn't a villainous conspiracy to try and stop you hating on the gays or whatever it is that you want to do. This is about keeping us alive. And hate speech laws promote free speech because targeted communities are silenced by hate speech. If you want them to have free speech, you need to have effective laws that protect their free speech. Thank you.
Don't worry, that's my boyfriend. He's allowed to do that. Got so much paper. Give me a second, team. Can't even read my own handwriting at this point. Right. Don't you love that scene? So analog. No, I haven't started yet. I will let you know. Got to adjust myself. Right. I will let you know. I'll try and sync up. Do you want to do it together?
No, I'm tech illiterate.
We give you a drink.
Excellent. That was disgusting. I'm sorry I had to hear that. Right, we ready? Do you want me to count you down? 3. Oh, fine, all right. Fuck. All right, team, how are we doing? Excellent. Oh, that was quite responsive for a New Zealand crowd. I'm used to a level of like mild suspicion, hesitation, and emotional constipation. In which case, I have to say that I do like a left-wing crowd. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Normally they put me in with a bunch of national voters. Not you, babe. Love you at the back way. You are accepted. Love you. Love your work. So it's nice to be around my own people for once. Makes me feel like I'm part of the Powerpuff Girls. Except we're all just red and green. Like there's no other colours. Now, all right, I am third speaker in a debate team, which means I have to do 2 things. I have to explain the arguments that you've heard and why they're wrong. Still love you, but you are wrong, love you. And then I have to sum up our shit, sorry, oh well. And then I have to say one more point in our team's favour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick off by running you through what you've heard and respectfully, why we don't agree with that. So, we have had a lot of chat tonight about how we need more legislation, tougher laws, tougher hate speech laws. Basically, the status quo is not working, it's wishy-washy, it's weak sauce, it ain't doing shit. Now, I understand why, and I understand where that comes from, but it is not the answer. So, the first thing we heard is that the lax laws that we currently have are allowing bullying to happen on social media, and that is silencing voices. Now, you know what? You are completely right. There is a lot of harassment that happens on social media. As soon as you say anything even vaguely controversial, you know there's a pile-on. Every person in this room has probably been piled on at some point. Now, what I'm saying is that we agree that that's absolutely terrible, and that does stop the individual's ability to express himself freely. But I want to ask you a question. Do you really think, given that hate speech laws take on average 9 years to reach one prosecution for one comment, and Facebook and Instagram can produce 900 on average comments in 9 seconds, do you think that hate speech laws are the best way to attack this problem? If social media didn't exist, I might agree with you, but it does, and the fundamental nature of how we debate has changed so much, even in the last 10 years. The idea that making tougher hate speech laws is going to regulate Meta is just laughable. Number one, they are not legally registered in New Zealand. They are an international company. They do not have to abide by New Zealand laws. Even if we did make them tougher, they will just be like, soz lol, we don't care. There is no point in us doing this through augmenting or making our existing hate speech laws tougher. It will not work. We have to get smarter. We have to fight harder. Now, number two, I would say that we've heard this argument tonight that we have to have more laws because at the moment bullying and harassment is effectively silencing the most vulnerable voices. You're right. There are a shit ton of bullies out there. They have taken to Meta like a duck to venomous water. However, what I would say is we know that bullies do not respond to people who play nice, to people who play by the law. They do not respond to people who do the right thing and who go through the legal channels. They respond only to what they understand, which is people who fight back properly. And I'm going to say that making tougher hate speech laws is not going to impact them in the slightest. Let's look at how you take down genuinely dangerous people. Do you remember Alex Jones used to get on all the right-wing media, talk about how the Sandy Hook massacres in the US were a conspiracy? What took him down? Wasn't hate speech laws, defamation lawsuits and bankruptcy. We have a problem with a bunch of insane, dangerous assholes who are getting out there and stirring up hate because we're all feeling poor, and that makes us right picky for fascism right now. We have a lot of those people out there. You don't get them through hate speech laws. That's what they want. You have to fight properly. How do you do that? You go after their money and you go after their platform. We should be fighting back by attacking the people who fund them, by attacking, just for instance, just an example, the idea that if you are a church, you have tax-free status as a charity in New Zealand. Have we thought about doing that instead? Because if that man responds to one thing, it's money. It's not the law. Now, what I would say is that we 100% believe that bullying is happening, hate speech is happening on Meta. But the best way to go about it is not changing our hate speech laws. It is teaming up and having an international effort, like you've seen in the EU, to regulate and to go hard against social media companies, to hold them responsible. At the moment, they get out there and they're like, yeah, no, we're just a publisher. Nothing to do with us, son. Nothing to see here. That is outdated. It is a lie. And it is similar to the invention of the printing press in the 1800s, where you had to regulate it because they were not neutral platforms. That is what we need to change, and this isn't going to do that. Now, Having just gone back to that, let me re-explain in 3 minutes and 7 seconds the final 2 things I need you to know from our side tonight. Whew. Number 1. That was the ping of my bra strap for the audio, if you're getting that. Were you mic'd for that? I hope you were mic'd for that. My God. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, team. How much do you trust this current government? Yep. Not you, baby. Wayne, you're good. You can accept yourself. You can walk out the room for this. You're good. But everybody else, not my dad, everybody else, how much do you trust them? Yeah? 0. Good, yes. It's probably like -14, maybe. What I am saying is that when you start making hate speech legislation, you innately say to the people who are making the legislation, we give you the power to define what is acceptable. Do you think, given New Zealand's current transparency situation, give our lobbying problem, give our current situation where you can spend 76 grand on a limousine to take you a 3-minute walk inside a building, do you think we're really transparent right now? Do you think that we're unbiased? Do you think that we're making fair and reasonable and non-political decisions about what hate speech is and what acceptable is? I don't think we are. And I don't trust lawmakers and governance to be able to have the moral authority to decide what is acceptable. I don't trust you. You are not allowed to do that. That is why the implication that we need tougher hate speech laws, that we need to give them more power, more authority, that this government should be able to sit down and be like, you know what? Let's go hard. No, no, no. No, no, no. They need to stay the same, and we need to find other ways to fight, because this is not it. In the remaining 1 minute and 20, let me just say, have you ever considered that this is exactly what they want us to do? Have you thought about that? You got people out there trying to whip up hate. You got out there people, very specifically, who we know, who are out there right now picking on the vulnerable. They want us to respond like this. They want tougher hate speech laws. They want to bait us into making harder rules so it looks like they can come back and they can say, I'm a martyr, look at me, I'm being discriminated against. Oh, the left, they don't believe in free speech. No, they don't believe in free speech. They only want to give you the right to say things they agree with. I'm being persecuted. The very last thing we need to do right now is play their game. Don't fight back by introducing more legislation, by giving authorities more power. Oh, no, no. We need to get them where it hurts. Defamation law, money, platform, everything else, but not this. Not this, no, no, no. Now, I've got 22 seconds left, and I can't feel any spit in my mouth at all. So all I'd like you to do is just ask this question to yourself right now. Do you think we should be in a position where we are giving the authorities more power over us? Or do you think we should step back and acknowledge, yes, hate speech laws do threaten free speech, but only in the sense that when they incite to violence, they are good enough. That is a line in the sand. We keep that there symbolically, and we need to find better ways of taking these guys down. Sure.
The comment on the spit in the mouth.
Yeah. It's real, eh?
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Yasmine Serhan tōku ingoa. I'm just going to bring us back to what we were here to debate tonight, which is whether hate speech laws threaten free speech. Ka pai, so that we're all on the same page. In Aotearoa, we recognise that freedom of expression is subject to justifiable limits, and those limits vary in different contexts. Say, what you'd be able to express at the WAS, or maybe what you'd be able to express in an education setting. I'm going to draw on some examples from the education sector and industrial workplace relations. In the education sector, you would reasonably expect that a teacher cannot tell a class full of 5-year-olds that they are stupid without facing any consequences. You would also reasonably expect that a principal, let's say, cannot hand out pamphlets to the school board calling on them to get rid of children who come from queer whānau. If I were a university lecturer right here, and I'm giving this example because I represent university staff, and I said to you all that this guy here, Martyn Bomber Bradbury, is called Bomber because he makes homemade bombs, I can say that, and I just did, but other than the fact that that might constitute to misconduct and make me go under disciplinary.
It's only recreational.
Martyn now has an action and defamation against me because I caused harm to his reputation for making a false statement about him. And he might also get a surprise visit by the SIS at the dawn. So sorry, it doesn't get better, bro. The common factor here is that these sorts of expressions, the pamphlet making or the misinformation about Martyn, have the capacity to cause mental, reputational, and sometimes physical harm. Hate speech laws are meant to step in to prevent that physical harm from happening in the same way defamation laws step in to prevent reputational harm. Now, freedom of speech never equates to freedom from consequences. And the aim of hate speech laws is to balance freedom of speech with the protection from harm rather than focusing on eliminating freedom of speech. The Affirmative team tonight spoke about how hate speech laws censor freedom of speech. The question I want to pose to that, is that necessarily a bad thing if it genuinely means that we are going to prevent harm from taking place? In Aotearoa, we've got our own track record of hate speech targeting numerous communities that is often directly translated into physical violence. Anjum tonight shared some of that in her kōrero, and this year in 2026, I had the opportunity to meet with the surviving families of the March 15 terror attack. I joined them for their 7th year commemoration. One of the family members I met was a 9-year-old boy who was 2 years old at the time, and he survived the shooting. Another family member I met was a teenager who had the responsibility to read out all the names of the martyrs, including her dad's, with her little juicy bag and vape pen. It was just, it was heartbreaking to see a teenager needing to do that for the community. The surviving family members will never get to see their loved ones ever again. So my question to this team is, would it have been so bad if the attacker was held accountable when he posted his hate speech online before it manifested into physical violence? A more recent occurrence of hate speech turning into violence occurred last year at the Te Atatū libraries during Pride Month. And posts were made online by the self-appointed apostle, whose name I shall not mention, who called online to attack organisations that celebrate Pride Month. Now, the target of that was a drag science show at the library. Auckland Pride organisers, library staff, and members of the public were attacked and threatened. The attackers themselves, and who assaulted the library staff and members of the public, were held accountable. They faced consequences. But the question that comes through this debate is whether the person who told them to do so through his hate speech should be liable too. If the call to action, if we want to call it that, was about race, it would have been illegal under the Human Rights Act. However, the law as it currently sits does not extend beyond race and ethnicity. It's narrow, and we've shared that a lot tonight. And when we're talking about hate speech laws acting as an early intervention, it's so that they reduce the risk of hate crime and social unrest. We're talking about legal provisions that would prevent harm to rainbow families, to our disabled communities, religious minority groups, and age-based violence. Now, we currently already have a number of laws, and I think, Thomas, you were talking about this idea of the risk of our speech being suppressed. We already have laws that suppress our ability to say things. So I'm going to just mention briefly the Films, Videos, Publications and Classification Act. We've got the Broadcasting Act, the Defamation Act, which was highly noted tonight, the Crimes Act, whereby it's assault if you threaten to harm someone. And there are different industry and professional codes that workers from different sectors are bound to, such as the teaching standards for teachers, etc. So, as I mentioned tonight, the Human Rights Act does provide some provisions, but they're just not good enough. Hate speech is not about offensive speech or jokes. We're talking about classifying a narrow group of communication that has evidence of leading to physical and psychological harm. And a well-drafted hate speech law would focus on serious, harmful expressions such as incitement or threats. And there are ways of balancing that against freedom of expression. For instance, we could look into definitions that already exist in international law and across other jurisdictions, and the law would be interpreted and applied by courts subject to the appeals process. And key to this is ensuring that there is due process. But to not even try to draft such laws because of putting it in the too hard basket is to ignore and minimise the harm to communities that some speakers in the Affirmative team may have never experienced. And the notion that hate speech laws cannot be effectively drafted and implemented is not borne out by evidence in Aotearoa. I'm going to bring it back to the union stuff because you brought up the breads and roses, okay? We've seen that hate speech can cause real psychological harm and trauma to targeted individuals and communities. It can create hostile environments and it impacts people's ability to participate fully in education or in work or in their social life. We know that in Aotearoa we've got some of the highest suicide rates in the OECD and our child suicide rates are horrific. So we, as a collective, have an accountable responsibility to ensure that we do everything we can so that real harm never goes unchecked. Hate speech laws are about protecting people from harm and preserving our conditions for our equal participation in society. A key narrative that I heard reflected on this side's kōrero tonight was a suspicion and not trusting the government, tautoko. However, we start by voting them out. Kia ora.
Comrades, Simon argues about guns. Guns don't kill free speech, they kill people. America needs gun laws, not restricting free speech. The Enlightenment was dismantled by free speech, not empowered by it. Anjum is a queen, and I'm not going to say one bad word against her. I will not. We are lucky and blessed to have her in this country. What an amazing New Zealander. What an amazing, amazing New Zealander. Yasmine, I hope you get elected. Oh, God, we need you in Parliament. They haven't convincingly put their case. There are laws that stop the harassment and intimidation. It is the state that will abuse these hate speech laws if they are passed. How lucky are we to have free speech to be able to have this debate tonight? Keith Locke was a political hero of mine. His fierce intelligence and his gentle, humble nature were a unique blend that made him one of our most important New Zealand voices for social, economic and environmental justice. I was very fortunate to live near Keith before he passed, and we would bump into each other on our walks all the time and get stuck debating and discussing the week's political events right there in the middle of the street, much to the annoyance of many others. His passion and his tenacity to never waver from debate is what we should acknowledge, celebrate and recognise throughout the years with the Keith Locke Memorial Debate Series. Keith knew free speech was a cornerstone upon which all else is built. We must endeavour to follow his leadership and his legacy. I want to thank my teammates, Thomas and Verity. I want to thank my opposition team. I salute Jane Kelsey and thank all of you who have given your attention in a hyper, instant, disposable culture. I call upon you all gathered here to change your minds and support our position that hate speech laws threaten free speech. Thank you, and a toast to democracy. Good evening.
4 minutes. 4 minutes.
Yeah, Bob only used 2.
Okay, I'll use 2 of his then.
I don't think he gave them to you.
Okay, here's one way to put it. It's perfectly legal to whitewash racism out of the rights debate, but woe betide anyone who affected by that who complains. They're accused of wanting to trample on free speech. The lesson, as always, is that them with the power makes the rules. One simple takeout from this debate is that hate speech, protected in the name of free speech, allows racists, misogynists and others to insult people with impunity. This reinforces their hatred because it establishes public tolerance for it. And that isn't dissolved by sunlight, it just keeps getting worse. Anjum has told us how much evidence there is in this country for that. Yasmine has told us that freedom of speech never equates to freedom from consequences, or never should equate to freedom from consequences, and talked about defamation laws having a place, many of our other laws having a place, and the nature of a good hate speech law is it would perform a similar role and have a similar place. But there's more to the argument. Rights are nowhere expressed absolutely, and when people try, it's a lie. Rights always exist in qualified form. Democracy itself is qualified. Even the equal status of our own votes is qualified. There are bad reasons for some of the ways in which those qualifications happen. The House of Lords in Britain is a good example, the Electoral College in America. But it can and should be possible to make good laws to safeguard democratic rights. If and when a right is qualified, it should be done principally to safeguard the interests of vulnerable groups, to avoid the tyranny of the majority, to ensure space and opportunity are given to the persecuted, the marginalised, the voiceless, those without power. The debate is, or should be, about how we do that, not whether we do it at all. I think Verity at heart understood that and agreed. And if it's established, as my colleagues have done so movingly, that there are vulnerable minority, less powerful groups whose rights are undermined, it is not acceptable that the powerful and their lackeys, their propagandists, should be the only ones who decide the rules, or that they can simply dismiss the dissent. The powerful have always dominated public discourse, but it does not lead to justice, especially when it's done sanctimoniously in the name of rights and freedoms. That is no more than a declaration of the rights of man that does not recognise the rights of women or slaves. Related to this, while democratic rights of all kinds are invariably established in noble language, yes, that was a Freudian. They are often instruments to reinforce existing power. A legal system that is too expensive for most of us to use, incomprehensible to many, does not dispense even-handed justice. We all enjoy the right to go out in public and mind our own business, but that is what rough sleepers are doing tonight, and if this government gets its way, their rights to do that will be removed. Just slipping it in. All of which is a way of saying when free speech becomes a weapon, the target is usually those least able to defend themselves, and it has consequences. We used to think we were immune to that in this country, but we know now after March 15, 2019, that is not true. We should have known it always. I used to work for a newspaper that was founded in the 1860s with the express purpose of promoting hatred of Māori in order to build support for Governor George Grey's assault on the Waikato. The truth about free speech is that it can be weaponised, and this has violent consequences. Hate speech is the very definition of that weaponisation, so it needs limits, and those limits should be well-written laws. We've heard that the arguments, most of the arguments from this lot are abstract and absolute. They're about the principle. But in the day-to-day world, we already accept the need to constrain absolute freedom of speech. We were told by Thomas that hate speech laws are tricky. That is not a reason not to have a law, as Yasmine told us. We're told by Verity that laws are too slow, that social is too fast, that laws are just part of a package. But laws are just part of a package. Social media companies are the problem, sure. But let's not get distracted from their villainy. We need a global movement to rescue humanity and the planet from the billionaire class. What we have instead is deliberately manufactured culture war. We're surrounded by bots and trolls and AI, vast amounts of state-sponsored freedom of speech. We should be talking about how we safeguard fundamental democratic rights and how we shore up the psychological, emotional and material security and well-being of people in the world. Verity was right. There are bigger issues at stake, but Verity was wrong that because we are not doing anything about them. Instead, we are being distracted by a culture war. We should be building a movement to end the climate crisis, overturn neocolonialism, shut down the oligarchs, and stand up to hatred, but a whole lot. And stand up to hatred. Free speech is not in danger, but a whole lot of other things are. Thank you.
As a little straw poll, have some of you changed your minds? Yeah? Yeah? I mean, we don't know what from and to. Yeah? Okay, so we're going to give you a chance to vote again, and we're going to have several rounds of thank yous, but let's just do a thank you now and then a vote, and then we will do a proper thank you. So you've got your QR codes and you all know how to use them now. Yes, so please do a revote because that's what's going to determine the winners. Yeah? And while you're doing that, I just wanted to take the privilege of being the moderator to share a really disturbing thing when I was giving evidence to a select committee 2 weeks ago on the India-New Zealand FTA. And the person before me was talking about it being a licence for immigration to New Zealand by Muslim men who were going to rape New Zealand women, and the chair of the select committee did nothing. Nothing. And so that's how bad we've got. Yeah? And that's not taking a position on the question there. It's just a reflection while you're doing your re-voting, because I'm not seeing a lot of action. And so we'll give you 60 more seconds. And then how is the adding up happening? It says you can vote more than once. Oh. Okay, I have nothing to do with the voting stuff, but no? Don't vote twice. Okay. All right. Okay, but vote your second time once. Yes. Okay, vote your second time, but only once. Okay. So how long is it going to take to calculate the results? Okay, everyone has to finish voting first. So, Myri, shall I hand over to you, and we can... You can't fill in who the winner is until... Okay, and let me say, other than one notable exception, everyone was incredibly well disciplined with their time.
I could never write something,
That's all right. We're told university lecturers work on a 50-minute slot, so that's... Okay. Has everyone finished voting, or are some of you still doing your thing? Or are you just playing with your phones? Okay. All right. Aye. No, I think they're all done. Cool. And sorry those who are at home watching online that you can't vote. You can? Oh, okay, we were told not. Okay. Well, we didn't tell you that you can't, so you may have, so. Okay. This is going to be in Simon's column in The Listener. And Martyn, you forgot something. Well, they might be the prizes. How are we doing? Okay. We have a winner! So I'm going to hand over to Mari. Oh. Well, okay. We're going to have a song.
You've got a chart. Is this like a live thing?
Oh. Yes, there's a. Yeah. Yes. Well, it is if it works. If it works. We did have a hiccup last year as well, so yeah. Okay. Yeah, but that's for the end. Okay, this is the most complicated part of the night, right? Myri.
Oh dear, I hope I get this right. Do hate speech laws threaten free speech? And when we did poll 1, 45 people agreed, but it went down on poll 2, only 37. Yeah, so the other side of that, 55 disagreed, and at the end, 63 disagreed. So I'm able to announce the negative team, the winners.
Slight pause.
Slight pause because I have to complete the...
Oh, the certificates have to be signed.
Well, I didn't know who was going to get them.
Do I get a sticker? Inside, do we get stickers?
I could give you a watermelon. Okay. We are running well ahead of time. So, yes, Francis, I can see you need to sneak out. Okay.
Congratulations to
And do we have one for the runners-up?
No losers, only runners.
With a second. It took me a few years for it. I'm so proud.
So, Mari, are you doing the thank yous?
Yes. There's a few more people who also deserve.
Hold on, Mari's.
There's a few more people who also deserve some acknowledgement. Candy and Leanne. Is Candy still here? Yeah. And Anna, wonderful Anna for. Where's Candy for helping? Oh. Well, for you and Leanne, for all you've done for us. And for Leanne. And for Jane. Oh, thank you. And for Bianca and her team. Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, as we began, let us conclude with karakia and waiata.
Before we close out, can we have a warm congratulations to everyone here, everyone who's done the mahi, made this a successful night. Kia ora. I'll just close this out with a karakia, but before that, just check on the back of your form, and we're going to do a waiata, so tu tera mai ngā iwi. Okay, so for those of you that do know how to sing it, you're most welcome to come up and join us up here. So, okay, te whānau, I'll close this out. Kia karakia tātou. Kua mutu o mātou mahi mō tēnei wā, our work is finished for the moment. Manakitia mai mātou katoa, o mātou whānau, o mātou hoa. Bless us all, our family, our friends. Ai o ki te aorangi, peace to the universe. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. All right, let's go. Come on. So we'll start it off and we'll do it a couple of times, okay? All right. All right. Tu tera mai ngā iwi, oue, tātou, tātou e. Tu tera mai ngā iwi, oue, tātou, tātou e. Whai a te maramatanga, me te aroha i ngā iwi, ki a tapatahi, ki a kotahi rā. Tātou, tātou e ano, tu tera mai ngā iwi, oue, tātou, tātou e. Tu tera mai ngā iwi, oue, tātou, tātou e. Whai a te maramatanga, me te aroha e ngā iwi, ki a te kapatahi, ki a kotahi rā. Tātou, tātou e. Tātou, tātou e. Hi o e hi. Kia ora. See you next year. Guys.
It was fun, eh?
You nearly had me.
You're like, oh, I'm like, almost. Don't worry, I'm not saying it personally.